Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us. My name is Vinay. I'm a faculty developer at the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Pedagogy here. Um, Thanks for taking the time on a Monday morning, just before lunch, to join us. Today, our topic is theory after practice, reflections on team teaching in a team-based learning and collaborative space. We have three presenters from the ICC course, the Interdisciplinary Collaborative Core module on Science Technology for Humanity. So I'd like to thank my colleagues, JY and Uni, for setting this up, and Uni for assisting with proceedings. Few housekeeping announcements before we get started. The webinar is being recorded. I hope that's okay. The recording will be shared once the webinar is done at the URL, which my colleagues will share with you. To ask any questions later during the Q&A, please use the raise hand function. And if you have any other comments, you can just type it in the chat during the webinar. So the way that this will proceed is that the speakers will share for about 40 minutes or so, I think 45 minutes or maybe earlier, and we'll have time for Q&A and discussion afterwards. So feel free to scan and subscribe to Inspire social media and all the wisdom that we are putting out there. And at the end of this, please do share your feedback with us. So let me quickly introduce the speakers. There's three speakers we have today. Dr. Jennifer Cash, who's a lecturer from the School of Humanities here. Dr. Lena Stephanie, senior lecturer at MAE, School of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering, and Dr. Fannie Zhang Yifan, lecturer in the ICC office, the Interdisciplinary Collaborative Co-Office. And without any further time wasting on my end, I will hand the time over to Jenna. Would you like to take over from here?
Sorry, you're muted, Jennifer.
Now I'm unmuted. Just share our screen. Okay, is the whole screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so good morning, everyone.
We're looking at your presenter.
You're looking at the whole thing, right? We did practice this before, but this is how it...
Just go to display settings at the top. Display setting, it's next to show taskbar.
Oh yeah, show taskbar.
So display
the next
settings.
one, display settings.
Mine looks different.
Oh.
Hang on. Yes. Better?
It's not showing up yet.
What do you see? Do you see this the slide? And only the slide?
No, I just see you.
Yeah,
You just see me?
not yet. Yeah.
Okay, now you see me, but not the slides.
Yeah.
Okay. What should it be at if I'm in the settings?
Could maybe try sharing the slides again, and then we can see your screen. Share your screen again, and we can see you.
Yeah, let's try from the beginning, maybe. Oh, now?
Yeah.
It's in presenter mode. So if you go to display settings at the top of your the menu at the top.
Display settings.
Yes, I think it's the second button from left. Yep. Yeah, the one on the right to that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just swap presenter view, slideshow.
Yes,
Now?
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Science and technology for humanities. Okay. Okay, so starting again, thanks everyone for showing up and also for your patience with us as we get the slide technology worked out. What Lena and Fannie and I wanted to talk about today is some about the team-based teaching that we're doing in the context of CC07 alongside the team-based learning. So this invitation that we had from CTLP to participate in the webinar comes at a good time for us because our course, Science and Technology for Humanity, is now in its 5th semester. So we feel like the course itself is fairly stable from the perspective of students, and now is a time that we want to work on really deepening the innovation of our pedagogy. And the team-based teaching component of it is one that we would like to explore and deepen some more. So that's why we are really pleased to be able to present some of what we're doing to you and to have a conversation about it and see what sorts of feedback and ideas might be out there in the broader community. So what we're going to do today is that I'm going to give an overview of the course and how the team teaching feeds into it. And then Lena and Fannie will also talk some about their experiences. So they have been on the course for several semesters and are moving up through the different levels that we have of instructor engagement on the course. So they have the ability to offer more perspectives to the one that I can provide from the more structural component. So for those of you who are not so familiar with Science and Technology for Humanity as a course, let me just say a little bit about it. It is one of the 7 ICC courses that have been introduced over the past few years, ICC being the interdisciplinary collaborative core courses, of which there are 7. And we were the 7th one to be introduced and the last one to be introduced. So of these 7 courses, 4 really focus on key transferable skills. So things like writing and digital skills, as well as core ethical thinking skills and career development. And the other 3 courses look more at global challenges. So they're meant to be highly interdisciplinary and for the content to really be targeted at challenges that are global in scope and not going away anytime soon. So we have it's a large course because it's part of the ICC core courses. It means that all INTU students must take it. And they normally take our course during their 2nd year. We run 17 to 20 classes per semester, and we have 3,000 students and upwards of that every semester, and which means we have a large teaching crew. So we have at least 25 to 30 instructors on the course at any given time, and most of these are not permanent members of the ICC teaching staff. So they are instructors who are drawn in from other schools and other departments, sometimes only for a single semester. And they can range anything from postgraduate students on through full professors. So it's really a real range of instructors that we're bringing on board. And we have 160 students in a class at a time. So when we think about this course, I think we have largely given a lot of attention to the structural dimensions of the course. And there's a lot about the very setup, the very physical space for teaching this course that supports the team-based learning and the team-based teaching that we do. What you see on the screen right now is a diagram of our classroom. So we teach these 17 to 20 classes each semester in a custom-built space. It's one of the collabs, which are in the experimental medicine building. And they have seats for about 200 students, but we have 160 on average in each class. So what you can see already is that although it's a large class, it is organized in a way that we can teach it as kind of nested versions of smaller and larger classes focused on team-based learning. So the students are sitting at tables, and in an ordinary class, they work through several levels of teamwork. So first in groups of 5 or 6 students, and then moving forward into bigger groups. And that the technology in the classroom supports the teaching as well. So you can see there's video screens, central ones at the front of the room. There's also some on the side walls, and then each table also has a monitor. So the technology in the room enables students to work together, at least sharing visual materials in their groups of 5 at sets of about 8 tables within what we call a cluster, which is like the small classroom within the larger classroom, and then across to all 4 clusters at the classroom level. So sitting at this individual table, as these students on the far left are, they could be sharing the screen from one of their devices to the entire group of 160 students at a time. They also have microphones in there, so they can broadcast out to the whole large classroom of 160 students from their table as well. So we have a lot of structural supports going into this large scale class. And again, at the content level, we've also focused very much on structuring the course so that we can deliver a high quality interdisciplinary class on a large scale, a mass scale, right? Processing 3,000 plus students every semester, and having enough flexibility and variety so that students from very different backgrounds and with very different interests can still find things that interest them and propel their thinking forward. So we use a flipped classroom structure. Students have access to video lectures before the class, and then during the class, we really focus in on a lot of active team-based learning with readiness assessments as well as introductory segments. So again, content-wise, it's highly structured. We have 3 themes in the course: aging, artificial intelligence, and blockchain. When we first started the course 5 semesters ago, in our first year, we covered each of the 3 themes equally. And in the second year, the last 3 semesters, we've actually scaled it back to focus much more on aging and artificial intelligence, with blockchain and computational trust just as a small added-on component at the end of the course. And the reason to do this was, again, to support the need that we were seeing among students, and that students themselves were identifying of needing extra time for reflection. So even over 5 semesters, the course, the content and the structure of the structuring of the content has changed substantially in terms of widening it up to allow more space for conversation and discussion, and also more time to work on a few assignments rather than a mad dash through multiple activity after activity. So far, so good. As I said, right now we're in a point where we're beginning to look outwards to theory to see how we can really deepen the innovation of the many elements of pedagogy that we feel like we have incorporated into this class. And team teaching is one of the ones that we want to focus in on. So when we look outwards into literature on interdisciplinary pedagogy, it looks like much of what we're doing is very, very good. This is what I have on the slide here in the graph are the graphic results from a study that was published in 2019 on best practices in interdisciplinary pedagogy. It's the result of survey work done among experts in interdisciplinary teaching, drawing on their experiences of what produces a good interdisciplinary class. And so we do almost all of it from the left-hand side of peer review and group work onto the right-hand side of a lot of real-world case studies and group work and team projects, scenarios, role-playing. On any of them, we seem to have incorporated very many of the elements that lead to good interdisciplinary teaching. But what we see in this setup of interdisciplinary pedagogy is that even when asked about best practices, the role of multiple instructors in the classroom is important. It's really important, actually. Where it comes out most is in the mediation of opposing perspectives. And so the modeling that multiple instructors do in the classroom is considered to be central to good interdisciplinary pedagogy. But when we look a little bit further into, well, how do you organize those multiple teachers in the classroom? Again, we seem to be doing much of what is said to be necessary. So in the normal setup of an interdisciplinary class, the planning between the instructors is seen to be incredibly important. So the success of a class seems to be directly proportional to how much time and consideration is given to the common framework. For example, who talks when, what are the rubrics, what are the grading standards, what is the content that each person is going to bring in, and so forth, so that it's still focused on the content of the course itself and the contributions that each instructor makes to those content. So again, if you look here, this final slide that I will be talking about before turning over to Lena, again, we're really doing a lot of that. The structure of the course supports us a huge amount. We have 4 instructors in the class at any given time, but each of those instructors is responsible primarily for the marking of an individual cluster. They're responsible for the daily discussions of the group work of the individual clusters. They take turns in presenting introductory material to the whole class. We have regular meetings to train new instructors and to go through the rubrics. We make ourselves, there's a core team of 4 who usually serve as lead instructors in the individual classes. And then we have a few instructors coming up into those roles from having been what we call a co-instructor into the lead slots. So there's a lot about the structure that seems already to answer to the questions of how do you build an interdisciplinary teaching team in the interdisciplinary context. But we still feel in our experience that we're facing challenges that offer us the potential for creativity and innovation, depending on how we develop those. So those are some of the things that I think we want to share further with you at this point. Lena, can I ask you to take over? I'll move to your slide.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for attending this session. I'm going to share my experience as a co-instructor as well as the transition from a co to a lead instructor. I actually took Jennifer's bait and agreed to be a lead instructor, but no regrets. Jennifer supports me all the way. So over to my sharing. The next slide, please. Thank you. Right. As long as I was a co-instructor, which was for the last 3 semesters, it was generally a passive role. And in my very first semester of teaching CC07, I would hesitate to even call it teaching because like Jennifer pointed out, it's more of facilitation, and the heavy lifting is done by the lead instructor. It is only the cluster level activity facilitation that is done by co-instructors. So when I started off, we did not even have to do any recaps. Currently, every co-instructor has to do 2 recaps, right? So that takes off some load from the lead instructor. Not only that, it gives the co-instructors some visibility for the students. Right. And true enough, like Jennifer pointed out in her sharing, the co-instructor role, especially in the initial semesters, felt like a TA's role, right? But however, I also have to admit that I couldn't complain much because of the relief that role offered. Yeah, the lead instructors would handle everything. They did the heavy lifting. So it was more of a passive as well as a relaxed role. But over the semesters, the co-instructors were called upon to do recaps. And now, as it stands today, every co-instructor has to do 2 recaps. So which I think is good as well, because it gives the co-instructors a sense of, contributing at the class level. And even for the students, they get insights, not just from the lead instructor alone, but from the other co-instructors as well. So some challenges I faced as a co-instructor, aligning with the lead instructor's lesson plans. There have been some semesters where I was involved in 3 CC07 classes and, working at the same time with 2 or even 3 lead instructors, 3 different lead instructors. Now, every lead instructor, has their unique way of, conducting the class activities, right? Sometimes it may happen in 2 stages, sometimes it may happen in 3 stages, and sometimes it may just be 1 stage. It is important for the co-instructors to actually understand the lesson plan from every lead instructor so as to be aligned with them. There have been times when I would have, my first class with one particular lead instructor, and I would assume that, okay, the next class, the lead instructor is going to follow the same thing. So I've made the mistake of not even checking the second lead instructor's lesson plan, assuming that it's going to be the same across all lead instructors. So that was a lesson that I learned the hard way. And also, sometimes we encounter situations which may be, one-off or something that we hadn't, encountered before. So it is always best to check with the respective lead instructor, as different lead instructors have different approaches to dealing with situations. To give an example, there are some lead instructors I have worked with who are very particular that students must be penalized if they overlook submitting the GAI declaration along with their assignment, especially after repeated instructions in class and via NTU Learn. But there are some lead instructors who are a little bit more liberal. So I realize that it's best to check with the respective lead instructor, to confirm how we deal with some situations, that we might not have encountered before. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about my transition to the lead instructor role, right? I realized this is a heavily involved role, and it comes with a lot of responsibilities to make sure that the class proceeds smoothly. And part of this is about coordinating and communicating with the co-instructors, to ensure that everybody understands the lesson plan the same way. Everybody's on the same page. So what I have learned to do is try my best to provide the lesson plan, which comes from Jennifer. I align with her. So I make sure that as soon as I receive Jennifer's lesson plan, I share it with my own co-instructors to make sure that we all know what to do in a particular class. Some challenges that I have encountered in my role as a lead instructor, time management for sure, because there is just 10 minutes transition time between classes. So, we have to quickly go in, do the setup, and starting the class on time is always a challenge because by the time, students trickle into the classroom and they settle down, easily 5 to 10 minutes will be gone. And of course, if we start the class late, ending the class on time also becomes a challenge. And sometimes, the recaps can get prolonged beyond the 15 minutes allocated, right? And that will steal some time away from the class activity. So managing time on the spot, depending on the dynamics, that emerges in a classroom, is also a challenge. And especially the missions, we call the class activities, we refer to these as missions. It is very important that we give a big picture view of the mission, up front, because some of these missions can take place in 2 stages or 3 stages. So the students should know what to expect in a mission, and that will actually help them manage their time. And sometimes completing all of the stages of the mission also becomes a challenge, in which situations, I've had to adjust the mission to also suit the whatever remaining time we have in the class. For example, we may have to remove stage 3 from the mission in order to make sure that the class doesn't end really late. And especially my class has this challenge because my class is the very last class for the entire week. My class is from 4:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. on Fridays. So by the time the students complete the mission, they become very antsy. They want to leave, right? So for me to hold their attention and go through the key takeaways is always a challenge. I'm still struggling to, get this done. Hopefully I can get it done today. Now, I also want to talk about other unintended roles, so it's not just about the teaching. It's not just about the coordination and communication and facilitation in class, but we also have to play other roles. A good cop, right? So one of the things that we find ourselves doing regularly is reminding them on top of the announcements made on NTU Learn, on top of the instructions provided in the syllabus, right? So we still have to keep reminding our students to, to follow the instructions. Sometimes what I do is I compile the instructions from the syllabus and then, announce that to my cluster, right? Because some, they may not take the trouble to refer back to the syllabus. So this is my good cop role. Now, I also have to play the bad cop, especially in my Friday evening class that I just mentioned to you about. I noticed this pattern among my students, right after the IRA, TRA, some of them quietly sneak out of the classroom, right? Because they think that, okay, I've completed my IRA, TRA, and I'm going to get my marks. So why do I need to stay back after this? Yeah. So, I have to catch them. And I take note, of students who leave after the IRA and TRA. I don't simply mark my students as present, absent. I also have to take notes, like left after IRA, TRA, right? Because we also have a class participation marks component. And I also announced to the class that this is something that they shouldn't be doing. And if at all they have to leave early, they have to seek permission from their respective cluster instructor. And sometimes we also have to play the spy, right? I've had this situation even in this current semester where a student took the IRA, TRA, from outside when she was absent for class. Yeah. So it seems that they still get access to the IRA, TRA from outside of the classroom. And this is intended as a closed book, assessment, which must be taken from inside the classroom. But we still have students, who somehow have access to the IRA, TRA from outside. And we have to check. We have to check to ensure that only students who are present in class, they have submitted the IRA, TRA. But if we have submissions from anyone who wasn't in class, then we have to reset their scores to 0. And also, we have this scenario where students in their GAI declaration form claim that, they have not used any AI at all, but an AI percentage is still, a significant AI percentage still gets flagged by Turnitin. And then once again, we have to do some investigation. Hey, you declared you did not use AI at all, but Turnitin AI percentage, is flagged as so much. So can you explain this, right? And mediator as well. This is another role. So sometimes some groups find it hard to get along. There may be 2 factions within the same group, or it may be just one person who may be seen as the troublemaker in the group. And I've also had to, play the mediator, because at the end of the day, they have to, like it or not, they have to work, cohesively throughout the semester in order to get all their group activities done. Because most of our activities in this class are group-based, team-based. Now, I've also had occasions where students would, challenge the grade that I give them, right? So generally, I've come across, such situations, when people get a B grade, they're not happy, right? Anything that is short of an A or A plus, they're not happy about it, and then they come and sit with you, and then they defend their proposal, and they challenge the grade that you've given them. So sometimes we also have to act like lawyers, explaining to them why we gave the grade we did, and in the process, defending our decision. Also, role of judge, making decisions in really ambiguous situations, situations where we really can't confirm what is true, what is not true. For example, a student writing to me saying that she missed a deadline because her cat was sick, and she was very distressed by that. Yeah, so sometimes we just give them the benefit of the doubt and accept their reasons, but it's hard. You wonder if in the process of deciding favorably in one student's case, are you being unfavorable towards other students, right? And storyteller. So this is also a role I find myself regularly playing, especially at the cluster level facilitation. I find that it takes some time for the students to warm up and then open up, right? So I have to start sharing my own stories in order to get them to slowly warm up and start the cluster level sharing. And this is also another role. Some students think that the instructors or the help desk. So they email to you with random requests. Hey, can you give me like 15 minutes time to discuss another idea, right? Or can we email our proposal to you? Would you be able to take a look at the draft and give us feedback, right? So that is, time permitting, I would accommodate, the students for consultations outside of the scheduled sessions. But one request I turned down is, help with reviewing a draft of their proposal, because that would be unfair to the other students, right? So these are sometimes hard decisions to make, but nonetheless, we have to do so. Yeah. The next slide. Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. So I would say all in all that, I have really learned a lot, being part of CC07, both as a co-instructor and also as a lead instructor now. Especially in my role as a lead instructor, I would say that my learning curve was expedited. I had to rise to the occasion. On top of facilitating activities at the cluster level, I also had to manage class level facilitation, right? So my role models are all, the CC07 lead instructors that I have worked with before, right? Jennifer, Supraja, Jeremy. So they're all my role models. So I will have visions of them, and then I will be inspired to do what they used to do in my classes as leads. And learning the tech. I never really bothered about learning the tech in the classroom, especially at the podium, right? Which only the lead instructor has to operate. But now I've had to learn the tech, and I have learned how to set up Padlets, and I realized all of these are really actually simple, right? So just that we never bothered to explore before. IRA, TRA settings taught by Jennifer, accommodations. Yeah, so all the very supportive lead instructors I worked with before, they helped me learn the tech quickly, and this expedited my learning curve. And of course, there is a lot of administrative work involved as well. Like I mentioned earlier, communicating and coordinating with co-instructors, setting up Padlets, and administering IRA, TRA, watching time. So classroom time management is a challenge that I'm still, grappling with. Multitasking, So when you are leading at, when you are doing cluster level facilitation, right? So there will be some group that has an issue in other clusters, and then you will have to quickly go and attend to that. All right. So, and also maintaining consistency in teaching, grading. And I think the lesson plan that is very, very important, and it is very useful in aligning everybody in terms of consistency in teaching. And the rubric in particular is very, very useful when it comes to grading. It makes sure that, I won't say that we have achieved 100% consistency, but it definitely gives us some direction, which if we followed, we can, hope to achieve consistency. So my my final line is, I've developed a lot of appreciation for CC07 leads. Right, I've now come to realize the massive effort that goes into leading and coordinating the 07 courses. And this is my final statement. It takes a true superhero or heroine to lead the CC07 mission. Salute to all the lead CC07 lead instructors and coordinators. Thank you. Over to Fannie.
Okay, Fannie, should I keep going with your slides too?
Fannie, you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yeah. Right. Okay. Hi, I'm Fannie. Before I joined as an ICC lecturer, I was a research fellow in EEE, and my research background is in biophotonics. And now I'm full-time teaching. The reason that I chose this PowerPoint template is because of this background, which reminds me about my conversation with a NIE researcher last semester. She is doing research on interdisciplinary learning in higher education. So we have lots of conversations, and through our many conversations about interdisciplinary teaching, we came to a common understanding that the role of interdisciplinary educator is to facilitate the connections of fragmented knowledge and to form a web of knowledge across different disciplinary. So there is the dots and the lines in this background. So with this goal in mind, I use inquiry-based approach to support the team-based learning. Today, I will share some of my thoughts on this through my experience as a co-instructor in CC07. So as a co-instructor, I don't need to plan a class activity myself. This is my transition from a researcher to a lecturer. So the main challenges that I face in team-based learning are the students' engagement, right? When I first heard about team-based learning, I assumed that the educator's jobs, just would be easier than traditional educator. Teachers could just stay idle, sit there, and while the students are discussing about the assigned topic. However, in reality, this is not the case. Team-based, which implies that teamwork is the central of the learning. The setting of the co-labs, as we can see just now the picture, right? It does facilitate students work as a team, but that doesn't guarantee as active participation, right? So the first challenge, Jennifer, can you click? Yeah. Yeah, like next slide. Yep, thank you. So the first challenge and the most important task as a co-instructor is to ensure that each group has a productive team dynamic. So if the students are outspoken, they usually can initiate and facilitate the discussions among themselves. And then most of the time, they can complete the task very well, even with vague instructions. However, if students are withdrawn from the topic, or if they treat it as a task to be complete only, then their groups tend to be quiet and prefer to work in front of their iPad or laptop. So usually I will pay more attention to quiet groups and find ways to open up their discussions. Then I will chit-chat with them first, and then try to ask some simple questions related to the topic. And sometimes, so maybe they need more clarifications on the topic, then I will try to explain to them or give them more specific directions for them to work on. And usually after warm up, they will start to discuss more. And the second challenge is to help students to connect their knowledge. As a researcher myself, so my mindset is the inquiries and all experiments. So and this has deeply influenced my teaching, and I believe that it's beneficial if students can connect their personal experience with the class discussion topic, and I'm trying to make sense of it. So I often use example to illustrate the connections, like I ask questions to verify the understandings. So finding suitable examples is a little bit tricky. because the example has to be something that students somewhat know about it, so that it can ease their efforts to participate in the conversations. But meanwhile, the example has to be something that the students are not so familiar, so that it still requires them to think critically, to connect the dots. But luckily, this is team-based learning, right? So and their peers are often their teachers too. So if some of them couldn't understand my explanations, their peers can often clarify it in a way that resonate more with their age groups, right? Maybe my examples are too old, so they can't catch what I'm trying to say, right? And the third challenge is to scaffold the students' thinking so that they can meet with our desired learning outcomes. This often requires a series of questions that lead them to a deeper discussions. However, if the discussion drags on for too long, students might lose their focus and withdraw from the discussions. So it's very important to balance the depth of questioning with the overall discussion time, right? These are the challenges that I encountered so far, and some of the ways that I'm mitigated. Right? And as someone new to interdisciplinary education, I'm still refining my skills as an inquiry-based teaching practitioner and learning the art of asking the right questions. And team-based learning has given me a very good platform and to explore better approaches in interdisciplinary teaching. So far, my experience in ICC teaching is exciting and fulfilling, more that is far beyond what I expected. And especially in CC07, team-based learning isn't just about students learning from each other, and is about instructors learning from each other too. So teaching and learning has become a collaborative process, so where I can learn new things from both my colleagues and students. And yeah, I'm always trying to remind myself, stay open-minded and learn together with my students and be a member of their team too. Yeah, that's all I have to share for now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jennifer, Lena, and Fannie. I think we can. I'm taking it that that's the end of the presentation, right, Jennifer?
Yes, I think
Like
that's
you're not okay.
very nice.
So we have about 12 minutes for Q&A and discussion. If anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand or type it in the chat. We can now open it up to the room.
So Umarani has texted us a question.
Mhm.
I think everyone can see it. It says, do you have a reflection exercise or other types of activities for instructors to share their experiences with each other? No, we don't. Umarani, what do you have in mind? I mean, what we have, we really only have, we have a beginning of the term meeting, which is structured very much as a training, a session for new instructors coming on board, as well as a session to get all instructors up to date with any particular changes or emphases that we want to have for the coming semester. And then we have a grade norming session and often an end of term kind of debriefing session. But none of those, I think, are what you quite have in mind of a reflection situation. could you tell us a little bit more about what you have in mind? Okay. So Umarani, okay, so maybe we'll have a look into what LKC has done.
Lena Oman has a question. Would you say that being lead instructor is any different from being a facilitator in TBL sessions?
Since I was sharing about my transition from a code to a lead, maybe I'll take this question. Yes, it entails a lot more than just being a facilitator. In addition to team-based learning sessions, facilitating these sessions, as a lead instructor, I have had to take on a lot more responsibilities, which is communicating with the co-instructors, making sure they understand the lesson plan for the day, and also communicating with them during grading to make sure that the submission folders are set up, to make sure that they release the grades at the right time. So it takes a lot of coordination and as well as administrative work. I won't say that I have taken upon myself all of that administrative work, because Jennifer does most of it. Even when I'm lead, Jennifer is still doing most of it. But if I were to be a full-fledged lead taking over everything, it would be a lot of work, a lot of responsibilities.
Thanks, Lena. Lena, I don't know if you want to come back with any follow-up question. It's a bit confusing that both of you share the same name.
Right.
No? Okay. Anyone else have anything to ask? I'm quite interested. I mean, if there's no other question, I don't see anything in the chat. If no one else has any questions, Fannie, can I ask a little bit about your inquiry-based approach? Like what do you mean by this, and how do you practice it in the ICC classes?
All right, it's like because I observe it, because in the class there's four instructors, right? Lead instructor and three co-instructors. So there's four instructors there, and I observe that the teaching styles are quite different among four instructors. Some were, they will instructors would like to share. They will ask for, like, usually our approach is like go to the table, to listen to the students sharing, and then some of them will give their opinions and thinkings about their discussions. But for me, I would think like, because from my experience, like, if someone just talking and I listen, and maybe, I can only capture 30% or 50% of what I have heard. But if someone asks me questions and I try to think and try to get the answer from the questions, then maybe I can remember about 70% of, about that. So instead of like, sharing my point of view, I will ask them questions instead. And what do you think about this? What if this is the case? And then what's your thoughts? So instead of sharing my point of view, I keep asking questions. So I'm not sure, that is like my inquiry-based teaching. Yeah. But yeah, these days, I feel that, I need more experience on that, asking the more, because sometimes I feel that it's quite difficult to ask questions, the right questions, because the students might not understand what is that, what are you trying to get. from, what is the answer that you are looking for. But instead, I'm not looking for the correct answer. I just want to listen to them and to know or try to understand them more. And then, what level you are, like what kind of example that is more suitable for the students. Yeah. So it's sometimes it really takes time is for the communications. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Fannie. I have follow-up questions, but I'm seeing that questions are pouring in the chat, so I'm going to turn to this. One question from Zheng Wei Li. May I check if there is any creative way to ensure assessment integrity for the IRA in TBL?
I can try to answer that. Assessment integrity for the IRA. So the IRAs are their quizzes set up in InterU Learn. They're multiple choice, multiple answer. And we have them set up now so that they are in lockdown mode. So students should not be able to access any of their computer-based references. So they should not be able to access slides or the internet. So normally speaking, that addresses the integrity for 99%, 99.5% of students. We don't release the grades or the questions until the end of the week. So between sessions, there also shouldn't be too much sharing, and the questions differ between each class has slightly different questions. So all of these kind of build into, generally speaking, fairly integrity-bound experience for the readiness assessment. But as Lena mentioned, there are holes. So students usually have more than one device. They usually have their phone out alongside their computer. So those who are fast and crafty and clever can find ways to text rapidly to a friend in the class or take a screenshot. So we do proctor, but we do also miss a few students. So it's not 100%.
Thanks. We have another question. I think Teo Yi is asking if they or any other NTU NIE staff can come and observe one of the class.
Yes, we often have visitors. So what we ask is that anyone who wants to be a visitor should check in with the ICC office, particularly with Lily Khan, to just arrange to attend a course and to let the ICC office know of your interest so that there's a record of who's coming in to visit the classes. But we've tended to be fairly open. And of course, especially for InterU NIE colleagues, it's very useful to have your feedback of the classes in session.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the chat or from the audience? Members, I'm vaguely aware that we are creeping up on noon. I have maybe one question if there's nothing else from the chat. So I think, Jenna, you mentioned something about one of the roles, given the interdisciplinary kind of environment that you all are operating in, is to model the kind of mediation between opposing perspectives. I'm just wondering, how do you all do that in the classroom, if at all?
I think we would like to know. I think we would like to work on developing this a little bit more. We do have so some structured components enable the instructors to interact. So where it should happen most probably is it should happen in the final component when we think about the activities that we have, that the first part of the activity is in the 5 to 6 person student team. And then the second, and if we have a third level, they get into increasingly wider settings so that many of our activities end with a full class discussion at the 160 student level. And that's probably the most obvious place for instructors to weigh in and to model opposing viewpoints. But we're often, as Lena mentioned, we're often really tight on time there. And I think you've seen it yourself as well, having attended a couple of classes, that debrief stage at the very end gets really compressed. So that is one place we can do it. But otherwise, I think we need to probably be more creative in figuring out how to insert it, because right now it's quite it's not very pronounced. It's there in the sense that when we mix groups, often we end up with students from another instructors in cluster in our own cluster, and then they've had exposure to their own cluster instructor, and then they have exposure to another one. They've been Fannie student, for example, and now they're talking to me. So the mediation is there, but it's definitely not pronounced. And students themselves are probably not noticing that it's anything other than just a different grown-up talking. So what do you think? Do you have any ideas, Vinay, about how we could
Not at all.
build that? No?
We can talk in less crowded fora,
Public.
but I'm also noticing it's 12:02, at least on my laptop. So I think we can thank Jenna, Lena, and Fannie for this sharing today, and thanks to all the participants who showed up and stuck around. So we can officially end the session. I will show I think Jenna and team are okay to hang around for a bit to continue the conversation. So if you're keen to do that, please do stick around and feel free to ask any other questions. Do scan the QR code or click the link my colleague is putting in the chat to give us your feedback on the session. And if you have any ideas for improvements about how we might do this, we deeply appreciate that as well.